Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon, live and direct from BZ Sierra Nevada Airy in occupied California, doing the job the American media maggots won't, featuring right thinking from a left brain, working without a net and under an assassination order. Here is the Bloviating Zeppelin.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass, and I'm all out of bubblegum.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show, live and direct from the SHR Media Studios. I am broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California. Tonight, it's Tuesday, August 27th, the year of our Lord 2019. Got a great guest for the first hour. But first, you got to belly up to the bar. We've kept your seat, and it's great to see you back. Tonight, Tashay is going to be your bartendress. She pours with the best of them, and the lava lamp is, in fact, lighted. Well, in this video scene, you can't see that. We'll talk about that later, maybe in the second hour. But anyway, what that means is that you can listen and chat at shrmedia.com. Listen and chat at shrmedia.com. You can watch the show on video on the SHR Media Facebook page and the SHR Media YouTube channel. So you can listen and chat. Oh, and we also emphasize, hey, go to the chat room. No place else. The chat is at shrmedia.com. No place else. Got to tell you, we don't water our drinks just like we don't water our conversation, politics, religion, crime, culture, economics, race, sex, science, law. We talk about it all right here at the Saloon. Nothing is sacred. The speech is free, but the booze is not. All we ask is that you flush the toilet, jiggle the handle. Don't forget to tip your waitress. For the first hour, I have a new and unique guest that I have never had on the show before. And
hello?
We'll see if he's here. Ah, there he is. This is one of the greatest times. This gentleman's name is George Eliseo. And George, you probably don't know all that much about the Saloon, which is okay. And I've got my official introduction for you. But when a guest answers on the first ring, and I can't tell you, because of technology and how it works for BZ, I can't tell you how damn happy I am to hear you pick up the phone. Because that's just how the hell it rolls around here.
Yeah, I'm sure you don't want your audience listening to 3 or 4 rings, right?
Well, that's okay. It's not the rings, it's the picking up that matters.
Okay.
Because technology, the whole shtick on the show is I am essentially a techno-Luddite. Me and technology do not get along real well. I mean, I could go into the veritable litany of all this stuff. But no, it's not about me. Tonight, it's about you. So, folks, listen. Tonight, we have a brand new guest featured here in the Saloon, and that would be George Eliseo. He is an 11-year veteran of and now retired from the San Diego Police Department. George Eliseo is also the author of the Kindle book Altering Course. It was released in October of 2013, which I believe, if I'm not mistaken, you've indicated on your Twitter page that it's coming out in paperback shortly.
Well, I'm working on that, yeah.
Okay.
I'm a bit of a procrastinator. You may have noticed this.
Well, that's all right. That's all right. Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed, always. That's
So
my motto.
the deal is, George and I have been corresponding back and forth on social media. And as everybody knows, he and I share a law enforcement background. I always enjoy talking to cops, obviously, and I also enjoy meeting and reading new authors. So Amazon, where you can find his book on Kindle, I'm telling you right now, Amazon.com, it's a bargain at $2.99. I got my copy. I got my Kindle back in, let's see, when did I buy that?
I think it's 2014, I think.
No, I got it in 2017. And I initially contacted you in 2017, and then we kind of lost touch. And then
I said procrastinator.
And
you thought
so,
I was goofy.
no, we got in touch recently because I saw a tweet of yours, and that reminded me that, oh, wait, I think I could have sworn I talked to him. And so I looked in my messages, and yeah, I had. So I thought, well, I'm already at no. Sometimes I get to yes when I ask people again. I said, hey, George, would you be interested in coming on? And he said, yeah, I remember that. Sure, let's do it.
Yeah.
So on the Amazon, I'm sorry, go ahead, sir.
I was just going to say, I didn't not say no to. I didn't say no like I don't want to ever do the show.
No, you didn't.
It was just pure procrastination on my part.
Yeah, that's okay.
It was like, yes, I'd love to do the show, and I'll remember this in a year from now, and then we'll do it.
So Amazon, where you can be found, Amazon says this of you. It says, George Alicio is a former patrol and neighborhood police team officer with the San Diego Police Department. During his 11-year career, he worked out of Northern Division, which covers the communities of Pacific Beach, La Jolla, and Claremont. His articles about the bizarre, funny, and sometimes deadly occurrences that keep a cop working, one of the most popular beaches in Southern California experiences, have appeared in Police, American Cop, and Inland Empire magazines, which, of course, piques my interest and makes me want to read each and every one of those. So first, I'd like to officially welcome George Alicio into the Saloon, and thank you, sir, for agreeing to be here with me tonight.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you for having me, BZ.
And second, tell us where you can be found on social media or any websites of which you'd like everybody to be aware.
Oh, I'm just on Twitter. That's mostly my hangout, is at George Alicio on Twitter. I think the book, I made a Facebook page for the book that I don't ever visit. So if you don't want to get in touch with me, you could go there. And, but other than that, it's mostly Twitter. I don't know why I've somehow gravitated to this site. It's just one of those. I don't know, it's like an addiction. I think sometimes it's just, what is the crazy Twitter thing going to be this week? And it's something about that. It's just like watching train wrecks around the world on your phone. It's just something. And then getting to be part of it, getting to throw in your 2 cents. I think that's what the magic of Twitter is.
There is a magic of Twitter. I wish it was egalitarian in some fashion, but it really isn't. But occasionally you can really find some uplifting stuff there. Oh my God, did I actually say that about Twitter? Christ, what was I thinking? We'll get to your book, Altering Course. And we'll also talk about what you may have up your sleeve. But as your first-time guest, folks want to know a little bit about you. So, George Alicio, where did you grow up, and where were you raised?
So, born in Youngstown, Ohio. Lived there until I was like age 10. And then my family moved to San Diego. My dad kind of saw, a very smart guy, he kind of saw the writing on the wall because he was he worked not in the steel mill, but he worked in the steel industry. He was a welder, and I think the company he worked for built like steel tanks, for big industrial tanks. And so I think he kind of saw the writing on the wall, and so he was like, let's move to California. And we came out to San Diego, and it was really fortuitous. He had learned to weld aluminum, which in those days was not as, prevalent as it is today, where everything's made out of aluminum. So he had learned to weld aluminum back in the day. And so when he moved out here, the shipyards were building this one shipyard, Campbell's Machinery, or Campbell's Industries, I think the name is gone now. They were building tuna boats, tuna seiners out of aluminum.
Oh, okay.
yeah, it was kind of a new thing. So when he showed up to apply for a job, and it's like, "Well, do you know how to weld aluminum?" He goes, "Oh yeah." So, well, you're hired. So, and then he stayed in the shipbuilding industry ever since, worked his way up, and that whole thing. But so it was Ohio, Youngstown, Ohio, to San Diego, California, which was quite the culture shock.
I'd say I had a couple of years in Ohio myself. There are a couple of folks in chat who are saying, "Oh, a fellow Buckeye." Murray Brockman says, "Oh, a fellow Buckeye." So you're already popular in the chat room.
Oh, great.
I lived in Kettering for a while, and then my dad was a full bird colonel, and then we moved on base onto Wright-Patterson Air Force Base for a while.
Oh, wow.
So I saw Ohio, and then we came back to California. So what schools did you graduate from? Did you go to high school in Ohio and then move out?
No, I was 10 when we moved out.
Okay,
here.
that's right.
So I was like, it was funny because in Ohio, because of the snow, as you know, all the schools it's an indoor, it's a big indoor building, with a playground outside. And then we moved to California, and it was all these bungalows, and all the buildings are, kind of you walk open air to wherever you're going, and it's like, well, what if it rains? Well, it doesn't rain that much, but
no, it doesn't.
So it was interesting. It was coming, and everything was different here. Canyons. We didn't have canyons in Ohio, and tacos and avocados and all these things. Like, what is all this strange stuff going on?
San Diego is a really interesting town. If you can, unless you're a moron, you should never lose your way in San Diego, because let's see, the ocean is to the west. You got to stop there. And then there are some mountains and hills to the east, and then San Diego is kind of in between. One of the coolest or the worst or the hairiest airports in the entire world, however, is in San Diego, because when you land in San Diego at Lindbergh, you land from east to west, like you're going towards the ocean, and because of aforementioned hills, your final into San Diego is at about, it damn near feels like it's 45 degrees. And then as you come in for your final flare, you're looking out the left side of the airplane, and you are eyeball to eyeball with people working in big multi-story buildings as you're coming in. And then the plane flares and you land, and it's pretty exciting. I love it.
It is, yeah. I know that parking garage is right there looks like on the final approach. That one, I think it's like a 4-story parking garage. It's like the plane flies right over that thing.
So in San Diego, one of the other things about San Diego is my brother lives down there. He lives on Coronado. And nice. His folks, his wife's folks were in the Marines, worked at North Island, all sorts of stuff, NAS, etc. And San Diego is just about the same temperature just about all the time. So if you want something similar to paradise, we'll get back to that in terms of paradise. But let's say climate paradise, you can't really go wrong with San Diego. So you graduated... I'm sorry, go ahead.
Okay, no, you go ahead. I was just going to say, the temperature, that's the selling point, is the weather. Everybody says, well, you can buy a house for less in Texas, but you have Texas weather.
Right.
So
it's going to be 110. It's going to be raining rattlesnakes and scorpions, and then the humidity will be, likewise, probably 110% or so, or thereabouts.
Right. Exactly. I know you mentioned your dad was a colonel. I think we mentioned on when we were talking before, my aunt was a colonel, full bird colonel in the Air Force. She just passed away recently, and she was a flight nurse. She taught nurses how to be flight nurses, and she flew all over the world. And then I think later on in her career, when she was a colonel, she ran a school for nurses. She was like I think Dragon Lady was one of her nicknames, but she ran the school, and she was tough. But when I flew into Texas, talking about Texas weather, it was for her funeral. I was only there for 2 days. Right, I flew in. It was raining. rain that night, stop. Next day it's blazing hot, humid, and then as we're leaving, I think some other weather condition came up. It was like I've only been here 2 days and I've experienced 3 types of weather conditions, in Texas.
Yeah, as opposed to San Diego, where it's like, I don't know, what would you say San Diego is customarily? 73?
70?
Yeah, 73,
it's cooler.
74,
It's always cooler.
and blue skies, period, end of statement.
Yeah.
Okay, next question.
Yeah, it rarely changes. Yeah, exactly. Oh, man. Oh, but sorry, you were asking me about school. So I went to school in San Diego. I went to high school and so forth, and then the police academy. I went to, I took some college classes, and then, but I never got into it as much. I never graduated college per se. The police academy seemed like, enough of an accomplishment for me.
Okay.
So,
did you do any military activity?
No.
Okay. Well,
No.
you're like me. I didn't do the military. My whole gig was in law enforcement. So, when you were a younger kid, and I'm sure you probably had a ton of jobs in your life, but when you were younger, what did you think you wanted to be as an adult?
A cop was one of those things when I was younger, because I gravitated towards like detective books, like the Hardy Boys books. I read
Right.
all the Hardy Boys books and things of that nature, and all lots TV shows, What Adam 12 and everything. And so I always gravitated to wanting to be a cop, but I also love books, So I started writing those articles you mentioned earlier, like later in my career. One of the guys that I work with was like the editor for Police Magazine, and I said, because I started writing for our little police newsletter, and then I stumbled onto him, and he said, "Oh, well, you can write. I'll send it in the magazine. We have a back page that you don't get paid, but we'll publish it. You have a byline and so forth." So then I started doing that. Then I started getting paid for it, and then when I retired, that's when I wrote Altering Course. So yeah, that was. But yeah, of all the jobs, I mean, it was always cop. Well, even before I was a cop, I was an EMT on the ambulance because my vision was not good enough to be a cop at the time. So you had to do. So I'll do this, instead. It just wasn't as fulfilling.
EMT, that's pretty amazing. And my guess would be that you probably had occasion to use your training while you were a cop in San Diego.
Yeah, the funny thing though was, when I was an EMT, I worked in a small city called Escondido in North County, San Diego, and the cops there had it so good because if there was like somebody that was drunk or somebody that was crazy or whatever, they called the EMTs because they had a contract with a private company that I worked for, and so the EMTs would handle all sort of like the dirty jobs, So I thought to myself, all right, when I'm a cop, I'm going to call the EMTs, and they're going to handle this for me.
And then you learned something similar to Fat Chance.
Yeah. So in San Diego, they don't do it the way they did in Escondido, and you handled your drunks and you handled the crazy people. You handled that all yourself. So it was like, well, when I was in Escondido, I didn't have to do any of this.
Hey, that should be good. Why don't you guys recognize that? That's the way it should have been. Damn it. Growing up, give me, I don't know, maybe one or two of the craziest jobs you ever had. Because before I found my gig in law enforcement, I was a guard for a nuclear reactor in Sacramento with Vanguard Security. So I found out a lot of stuff about nuclear reactors that you don't want to know. I still to this day glow just a little bit, only very much, and only in complete darkness. In a full moon, you really, really can't tell very much. I was a tow truck driver. I was a taxi driver. I pulled weeds. I worked in radio and KFBK. So what are some of the kind of wacky jobs that you did growing up?
So worked at a car wash. It's not wacky, it's just kind of your first job.
Right.
Worked gas station, and then, but one of the wackier jobs. So when I quit being an EMT. My certification had lapsed, right? So I couldn't be an EMT anymore. I didn't want to pay the money to go through the school again because I'd already applied to San Diego PD, and I was going through the process. The background process takes like a year or more. And so I was like, I don't want to pay any more money to be an EMT, and I don't like being an EMT anymore anyway. I've done it for 6 years, and so I thought I just needed a job to tide me over from the ambulance to the PD. So I thought, well, what are my skills? I have some medical training and so forth. But so I end up at the local hospital being an operating room orderly, and one of the things the orderlies do, normally, you get the patients from upstairs and you bring them down to surgery and you transfer the bodies, the people over. They're alive. Hopefully they stay alive. That's our goal. Kind of the motto. But one of the things that they don't tell you is, so when the surgeons are finished, you guys are going to clean up all the bone and blood on the floor.
Great.
So we're going to do that.
Yeah, okay. Perfect.
Okay, so that was fun. So I did that for a year, and then I got into the police academy. So I left, which was my plan. But that was kind of the wackier, one of the wackier jobs.
So you went through the police academy, I think, in 1989, and that was at Miramar College. They sponsored that.
Correct. That's correct. Yeah.
Okay, so when you worked for San Diego PD, in what areas did you work? In other words, like patrol or any other assignments, that kind of thing?
No, it was all patrol. I started in patrol. Well, everybody starts in patrol, and then I did some like special assignment time, like with narcotics, because that was I was very good at it because of the EMT training. So you could, as an EMT, you look at people's symptoms all the time, and so you just transfer that over to narcotics because you always see the objective symptoms of narcotics use. And anybody that uses any kind of drug, you're going to see, if you know what to look for, you'll see the symptoms, right? So a lot of cops don't get into that or like that because, you're looking into people's eyes and you're having them stick out their tongue or you're taking their pulse. And so there was a lot of cops that just shied away from that sort of aspect of it. But I found it fascinating, and I loved the narcotics part of it. So then I did some special assignment time with our narcotics unit, and then we had at Northern Division, they formed the neighborhood police team, which was a special assignment. It was really interesting, where you were in uniform, you drove a marked unit, but you did not answer radio calls. You had an assignment. This was when problem-oriented policing was very popular,
right?
And so you had an assigned area. And so then, this is my area, these 2 or 3 beats, and I'm going to I'm going to find all the problems in this area, and then I'm going to attack those problems. And so, mostly it was drug houses and things of that nature, and all the crime that stems from that. So, and that's what we did, me and my partner, and we were a special unit, and what was cool about that was not only did we didn't just make arrests, because normally as a patrol officer you'd make an arrest, you book somebody into jail, and that was the end of it. So, but with us, we were able to we carried our own caseload like a detective. So we would do our own DA packages. We would develop informants, although not officially. We didn't have informants where you had them signed up an informant where you paid them any money, but we would develop informants that would give us information and just related to our beat and related to our problem, to whatever our problem areas were. So it was a really good. It was a really good concept, and it worked really well. And that was kind of, I did that for off and on for 3 or 4 years, right before I retired. So
when you were doing that kind of stuff, did you get interested in and become a DRE, which is a drug recognition expert? I mean, did you ended up?
Yeah, I don't want to interrupt you. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
I know.
I was just curious if you kind of angled that way when you were in patrol or traffic on vehicle stops or whatnot.
No, I saw guys that were DRE. They would do the blood pressure. They did it a little bit differently than I did it, but I never needed it really because I already had so much medical background.
Okay.
So you know what I mean? It was like it would have just been a superfluous for me to do it. I saw them doing it. I saw, there were some guys like Traffic. You're right. Traffic was big on that. But to me, it was like, look, if you can't figure out this guy is high from, 120 beats per minute and his, pupils look like this. And I mean, it was so, to me, it seemed so obvious. There were so many, signs and symptoms to see if somebody that was under the influence. I didn't need his blood pressure to tell me he was, under the influence.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Let's come back to this topic, because I'd like to focus on your writing and your book, Altering Course. So, George Eliseo, when did you decide one day that you decided to write a book? Did you have some kind of an epiphany at one point?
It's hard to say. It's like writing magazine articles were, they were fun and they were easy to do, but I'd read so many bad books. It was like, I can write better than this crap. I know I can write a better book than this. And so, yeah. So it was like it just got to the point, because I literally have read thousands of books in my life over my time, and everybody used to complain, "Oh, you're always reading a book." Yeah. So it got to the point where, look, I know I can write a story, and based on some of the experiences I had as a cop, it's like, I think I can. And then telling the stories that I wrote for the magazines, which most of them, those were all like real events that had happened. I think there were a few that were just like funny satire type pieces I wrote, but most of all, it was like a true, this is what really happened, and this is how it happened. So I thought, well, now you can taking that experience and taking it to the next level, where although with mysteries, and to me, they're very difficult, because you've got to figure out the mystery, and then you've got to figure out how your character is going to solve the mystery, and still keep it kind of hidden from the reader. You know what I mean? It's like it's like there's sort of a.
It's almost like a puzzle.
It is a puzzle. Yeah, you've got to figure out the puzzle, figure out how somebody else will solve it, while everybody else doesn't see how he solves it. Until the end, or however you're. There are some mysteries where the bad guy up front, and I never liked those. So when I wrote this mystery, I thought, no, I want to keep it more traditional, where you're not sure who the bad guy is, and then it's kind of revealed there at the end, and so forth.
I find it really interesting, because you're the second author in a row. The first was Matthew Betley, and I had him on about maybe a month ago now. Mm-hmm. He's written 4 books. They're more military-oriented. And he said, just like you, he says, you know what? I got tired of reading books, and finally one day I said, I can write crap that's better than that. That's terrible. And that's how he got into writing as well. I find that really interesting.
Well, I think when you've read enough, in the story, and it's like every I've taken writing classes, and I've taken a screenwriting class and creative writing class, and you want to hear a funny story about writing? So
we got 2 more minutes before the bottom of the hour break. If you can do it in 2 minutes.
No.
Okay.
I can't talk that fast.
Okay.
We'll save it till after. But yeah, no, but then, talking about military books, so that's why I say this next book I'm writing, or almost finished with, it seems easier because it's science fiction. It's science fiction military, where I kind of already know, I've got it, all outlined. I know what's going to happen, and it's fairly straightforward. Because I'm working on the next mystery for the Altering Course, the next in the series for that, and I'm still kind of stumped on exactly how that mystery works. I know how I want it to go, but I've got to figure out the crime. Who does the crime? How does he or she get caught? The whole thing. So I'm still working on that aspect of it, which is a little more difficult than I think like with military or science fiction. But
folks, we're talking to George Eliseo. He is a retired San Diego PD officer, still living in the San Diego area. Retired in, I think, 2000, if I'm not mistaken, right around in there.
That's correct, yeah.
Okay, got into law enforcement in 1989. When we come back, we're going to continue talking about his book, Altering Course, and I need to tell you this, you can buy it right now, folks. You can get a copy on Kindle, just like I did. It's $2.99. It's one hell of a bargain. We're going to take a break, and we will be right back after this.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Hey, this is Michael Wright.
And I'm Shannon Wright.
Join us for The Right Way with Shannon and Mike, Monday through Thursday from 7 to 9 a.m. right here on SHR Media.
Why are they joining us?
For fun things like sports, politics.
Oh, maybe some news and entertainment?
And all kinds of other things.
Money and recipes and events, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, so join us Monday through Thursday, 7 to 9 a.m. here on shrmedia.com.
From a public locker inside a dilapidated Long Island rail station comes a show designed to piss off liberals using truth, facts, and ridicule. The Lid Radio Show, featuring the conservative voice from the People's Republic of New York, the Lid himself, Jeff Dunitz. Tune in every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com. At Lid Radio, we fight for the truth, justice, and a good kosher T-bone. If you don't listen, Hillary Clinton might sneak into your bedroom in her housecoat late at night and blame you for her election loss. It's the Lid Radio Show with Jeff Dunitz.
Hey girls, Carry Girl Gear is here. More and more women every day are concealed carrying, participating in competitive shooting, and getting firearms training. It's not a boys club anymore, and we don't have to shop in their stores anymore either. Finally, a cool and unique clothing line just for women. Dope tees and hats for the patriotic concealed carry and 2A girl. So what are you waiting for? Go check out carrygirlgear.com today.
It's your business diva here, Melanie Collette. I am inviting you to a front row seat as I discuss some of the most intriguing details of wealth and finance with today's movers and shakers in the world of business. Listen in and discover financial truths on a global, domestic, and household scale. Uncover topics that will impact your wallet today and in the future. Money Talk with Melanie airs Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. East, 2 p.m. West, right here on SHR Media and High Plains Pundit Talk Radio. You can't afford to miss it.
The new show on the SHR Media Network, Sackheads Against Tyranny. On shrmedia.com. Go there quick like a bunny, 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific, every Wednesday. Live and direct on the SHR Media Network. shrmedia.com. Be there.
For 50 years, I've seen the American people blinded by corrupt politicians, a lapdog media, and deceptive Islam. The one thing the elites fear is one man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me through Spreaker, iTunes, and SoundCloud, through SHR Media and the Western Free Radio Network, for half a century of experienced perspective on political and social issues, weekly on The Unpleasant Blind Guy. And catch me on Jeff Mitchell's EDL Radio on blogtalkradio.com. There's
no surrender, ever.
Because truth is not always pleasant.
Broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, a mere 2 miles from the state capital, the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show can be heard every Tuesday and Thursday night at 8 p.m. Pacific and 11 p.m. Eastern, only on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com to listen. You can also watch on the SHR Media Facebook page and the SHR Media YouTube channel. No goldfish were abused in the making of this ad. Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, thanks for listening to the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show, live and direct right here from the SHR Media Studios, where I am broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California. I am a mere 2 miles east of the Bill Mill, the locus of evil on the entire left coast. and that is the Capitol building at 10th and L Street, downtown in Sacramento, where late at night you can hear the death knell of common sense issue out in audio. And then you can also smell, when I leave that door at about 10:30 at night, you can smell the noxious odors of sulfur and brimstone likewise emanating from that terrible building, the Capitol building, the Bill Mill at 10th and L Street downtown. We're talking to George Eliseo, who is a retired San Diego Police Department officer. He's also an author of the book Altering Course. George, you published your book, Altering Course, in 2013. Like I say, if you want to get it right now, folks, go to Amazon.com. You can get it for $2.99. That is a hell of a bargain for that book. I purchased my own in 2017, and I'm wondering, George, if I love it when I find a book that engages me from the very first page. And I'm wondering if I might read a little bit of the first page of your book to the folks here, Altering Course.
Oh, sure, I'd be honored.
Because, folks, this is what grabbed me immediately. Something bad has happened. I'm alone in the ocean, treading water. Rolling green swells surround me under a foggy ceiling as I realize this is the Pacific. I'm propelled along by a strong current caught up in the flow like a dirty sheet in God's washing machine. The power of the rip current holds me tightly in its chilly grasp. I'm moving too fast to break free, but the familiarity of the water I've grown up with gives me a small amount of comfort somehow. After an eternity in the churning sea, I hear the sound of waves breaking on an unseen shore, just moments before the swell behind me curls over into a 6-foot breaker. Before I can even begin to worry about whether or not there are rocks or cliffs ahead, I'm swept up and thrust through the wall of mist. The surf crashes, rolling me out into the sandy beach. The water recedes, leaving a blanket of white foam behind. I can visualize this perfectly. I'm face down on the firm, wet sand. I slowly get up to my knees and notice I'm wearing bright orange swim trunks. This is odd because I don't own any bright orange swim trunks. That got me right there. And that made me want to keep reading the book. And that's what I love seeing in a new book, in a new author. I thought it was great.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that.
I got to ask you, when you wrote your book, was there anything in particular that you wanted to say with your book? Or did you just want to write something that you knew other people would finish and say, I really enjoyed the hell out of that?
Yeah, no, I don't have a message or anything. I want to write a book that I want to read. Is the way I sort of approach my writing. Is that I want to write a story that I would be interested in reading, and because I read so many books, and it's just like if I want something that, because I know that I've read all the bestsellers and back in the day, and used to follow all the authors and read all their stuff, and it was just like I want to write a book like that but the way I think of it is like I'm not writing it, because I think some writers approach it at like formulaic, like well, wizards are hot this year, and I've been to writing conventions where they say, we're looking for the next. We're looking for like a female Harry Potter this year, and so I don't approach it that way. I want to write a book that I'm interested to write. I'm interested to read.
Does
that make sense?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense.
Okay.
That would be a perfect motivator, is because really, why wouldn't you want to write a book that you would read? That's where you start, is yourself. You are your immediate sphere of knowledge. Right. What I'm curious about is, what did you find was your writing regimen? I always ask this of authors. Are you for example, are you a daytime writing guy? Are you a nighttime writing guy? Do you write with music playing? Does it have to be absolutely quiet? What's kind of your thing that gets you going writing?
So I mostly write when I was writing that book, I mostly wrote in the morning, like first thing in the morning, like 8 a.m. I wasn't working at that year that I finished it. And so I was like, oh, well, if you want to hear the long, arduous tale of this book,
Oh,
So
yeah.
I wrote
Oh, hell yeah. I want to hear the story that you were going to tell me at the end of the hour, or at the end of the first half hour.
I'll tell you that. No, that was the quick. So this is one of the things, because like I said, I always loved creative writing. I just loved writing, and I loved stories. So my brother, I was the oldest, and so my next youngest brother, he was in high school, like 2 years behind me. And so he would come up to me, and I think he had like his first English class or something, and he'd come into my room, and he goes, "Hey, I'm supposed to write a story for English. Do you want to write it for me?" And I was like, "Sure."
Oh, hell yeah.
So I would write him a story, and he would, he'd put his name on it, and he'd take it to school, and then.
Perfect.
Yeah, and but it was so funny. It wasn't until years later he told me, he goes, "Yeah, my teacher used to come up to me and say, 'Man, sometimes, you give me these great stories, and then sometimes they're just terrible.'" So I was like, "Oh, well, yeah, okay, now I see what the deal." But so with this book, Altering Course, so I wrote the first draft and like right after I retired, and then so a good friend of mine who was also a police officer, he was big into there's a San Diego writing community, and he said, "Oh, you should come to our they have like a convention, and so I go and hear a lot of speakers and so forth." And so when I got the first draft finished, I talked to him. He goes, "Okay, well here, so you want to send it to this editor, this woman, she specializes in mysteries." Oh, okay. So it was great. So, but she costs $1 a page to edit your book. So that's fine. I'll pay it. So I send her you print the whole book out. I send it to her. And then, I've kind of, as I said, procrastinator. I kind of lose track. I'd forgotten about it. I'm doing other things now. And then, almost a year goes by and I'm like, whatever happened to the book? I never heard back from the editor, and so I email her, "Hey, whatever happened to my book?" She's like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry." Because when I first sent it to her, she goes, "Well, I'm going to get to it, but I have these other clients that are, bigger than you, basically, that need my help." Okay, whatever. So she goes, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I'll do it right now, and I won't charge you." So great. So she edited it. She sent it back to me. She didn't cash my check. It was still there in the package of things for a year, pages. And then, so she was real good. She said, "Okay, you should eliminate this. You should add more to this," and so forth. And she was very good. And so I took all her suggestions. I cut out all the sections and the characters that she didn't like, and because this is my first novel, so I needed all the help I could get, to be honest, right? So now I have the edited first draft with big chunks of of characters and things missing. Oh, but the overall story is the same. It's the arc is the same. The beginning and the end. But now there's these giant gaps throughout the whole thing. Like 30,000 words are missing. So I'm like, okay. So then there was like I said, there was this period where I wasn't working, and so I was like, all right, I'm gonna sit down and finish this book. And so that's what I did every morning. I got up and I wrote like 4 hours on the book. And then to answer your question about the music, I do always listen to music. And it's funny, I listen to like techno, like EDM music.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think because it doesn't have lyrics typically, so it doesn't draw on my brain. It doesn't get, it's just the music playing. I tried to listen to like a radio show one time, like Rush Limbaugh or something, but I can't because I'm trying to process what he's saying,
right.
And then I can't figure out what my characters are saying if I'm listening to what he's saying. You know what I'm saying?
Let me ask you another question, if I can. Some of the people in the chat room, and there's a number of folks in the chat, have asked me if they can call and ask you a question. So would that be possible?
Oh, sure, I'd love to. Yeah, okay. As a matter of fact, I just dialed over to your chat room. I just realized that, like you with technology, hey, I can talk to you and actually click over to your chat room at the same time.
Okay, so there you go, folks. If you want to talk to George Eliseo, give us a blast here at 209-284-3210. 209-284-3210. And for those of you who just tuned in from Pennsylvania, Pango Pango. It's 209-284-3210. That number east of the Rockies, 209-284-3210. So as that goes on, let me ask you another question if I can.
Sure.
Was the process of writing itself as easy as perhaps you thought it would be, or was it more difficult than you surmised?
It was difficult to get started on the story, like I said, the plot and how this unfolds, and how things are discovered and so forth. I mean, that once I had worked that out, and these characters were all new to me, except for the main character, which is, people tell me is a lot like me, because it's my voice in a way, you know what I'm saying? It's
right.
Not me, but it's my voice. It's how I would, it's an ex-cop. It was how I would talk. There's similarities there. But once I had sort of dialed into the story, then as I fleshed out the characters, then it was really weird. It was very easy. And then the characters actually kind of write themselves in a lot of ways, because like I'd be writing the dialogue, and it would just, and wasn't even thinking about it, but it was just something that I knew they would say, if that makes sense. So
did the characters, I mean, my guess would be you knew your protagonist, but did you know your other characters? Did you develop a relationship with them so that after a while you kind of knew, yeah, this is what they're going to say. This is what their answer would be. This is how they would respond.
Oh yeah, because I loosely base them on people that I kind of know. Like some of the characters are based on acquaintances. Because if I know, and to me, if I know the person too well, then it won't work. Like I can't base it on a family member.
Okay.
But if it's an acquaintance where, I've kind of formed my own opinion, it's somebody I know, like I kind of know how they speak and their cadence and their accent if they have one, and I kind of know what's important to them, and I know a little bit about them, and then the rest I'm making up anyway. I think we all do this to an extent. You meet somebody for the first time and you think, oh, that guy's he's a gambler, or he's this kind of guy. We always make these sort of snap judgments about people we meet. And so it's just sort of the same thing where you, somebody and you've sort of imagined what their life is like, and that's all I do is I take somebody that I kind of know, and sometimes it's even actors. Like in my book that I'm writing now, there's a British character that I kind of loosely think of. I think of the actor Jason Statham, the transporter.
Right. Okay.
So I think of him and how he says things. And kind of like his attitude about things. And so I just draw on that, for example. Don't tell Jason, because he probably want money for this next book if he knows.
Jason, stop listening. Turn the thing off, okay? Go pour some tea. I got a caller who wants to talk to you. Kaiser, go ahead. Darn it. Hey, Kaiser, I got echo out of that thing. You've got something crossed up. Can you hang up and then call back? Because this has happened before. You've got a line open or something like that. So hang up, call again, and we'll see if we can make this. There you go. In the meantime, I have to ask you, George Eliseo, this is who we're talking to, author of Altering Course. I bought the book back in 2017, and I thought it was a wonderful book. It caught me from the very first page. Like I said, okay, Kaiser is calling in again. Let's see if I get echo. Kaiser, are you there?
How's it going?
No, we got echo. Damn it, Jim. Okay. All right.
The technical world.
Yeah, it is. That's exactly. It's my luck, my world.
If you want to tell Kaiser to just type it on the screen, I'll see his question.
Okay, there you go. Kaiser, great idea. Or anybody who wants to ask a question of George. If you're in chat, type it. Hey, Jay from
New Zealand.
From New Zealand says hello. Well, Jay, I think she's the gal that called in from New Zealand, and we talked to her about firearms in New Zealand. So great, another international guest. Great to see you. So, folks, if you want to ask George Eliseo a question, type it there in chat. He can see it, and then he can answer it. Sometimes I have to be really careful when I go here. Okay. Sometimes it's difficult to know what an author wants potential readers to know. And so I don't want to spoil the plot for people. So could you tell folks what Altering Course is about?
So Altering Course is the story of a medically retired San Diego police officer who is looking for his next gig, his next job, and another former police officer who had retired had started a private detective agency there in Pacific Beach, San Diego, and calls him up and asks him if he'd be interested in working on this missing persons case. And then as sort of a corollary, if I'm pronouncing that right, I read more than I speak, so I mispronounce a lot of words. The main character, Carmen, has sort of a paranormal gift where he has precognitive dreams about people and things. Sometimes it's nothing he controls; it just happens.
Okay.
So he had a dream already about that's what this part he read, the first part of the first page. So it was a thing that he doesn't like to access, but it just happens. He has no control over it. So as the story unfolds and he's searching for this missing person, then he finds, a couple other people that are also kind of gifted in different ways, and it's still a straight police mystery in a lot of ways, a police procedural, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
but it then has the paranormal, slight paranormal aspect to it. But it's not overwhelming. It's not like Stephen King kind of a ghost story type of thing. But that's the plot. It's his first case, missing person, and he's because he was uncomfortable. He took it on he didn't want to take it on, but when he realized the dream correlated with the missing person, then he realized he had to, move forward and take the case.
Kaiser in chat, I think, has the question for you. He says, I think that George kind of answered my question. I've been worried about my book and naming names and operations to events. Kaiser comes from a military background.
Oh, gotcha.
So he asks, I guess I could write it from I'm guessing, a fictional perspective. Is that what you mean to say, Kaiser, fictional? Or maybe you mean factional, it's part fact and part fiction. So while Kaiser is going to answer that question, I have to ask you this. Because let's see, we got 8 more minutes left before the end of the hour here.
Okay.
What do you see something in the future for your private investigator whose name is Carmine LaRosa? What do you see for his future? In other words, after I read this, am I going to see him again?
Oh, yes. Yeah. The whole idea of that book, or that is a series of books, they're all based, like for the next book that I'm working on for him is called Man Overboard.
Ah, okay.
And all of the books are based on the nautical flags. If you look at the cover of that book, you'll see a red and blue flag at the top.
Right.
Okay, that is the nautical flag for altering course to starboard.
Oh, okay. Then there's a PPK and a dragonfly, and I'm not going to Bigfoot anything more, and I'm not going to say what they refer to. But I'm just saying that whoever you got to do the cover, by the way, did it very nicely.
Well, that was my daughter, and I will tell her I will give her your compliment. Yeah, she's a graphic designer. Actually, she and she works for free for me, so it was a bonus. Actually.
Perfect.
Yeah, but she is now an editor in Hollywood. She's working on Mayans, the TV show Mayans.
Oh, right, for FX, about the motorcycle group.
Right, she's one of the assistant editors on that TV show.
That was sort of an offshoot of Sons of Anarchy. That's sort of my guilty pleasure because, I arrested bikers in my day, but I enjoyed, for whatever the hell reason, I enjoyed watching the TV show. And
I know, right?
It went for a while. Shoot, that thing was on for like 7 seasons, I think, so it actually did pretty well.
Yeah.
Let's see, 6 more minutes.
Yeah, to answer Kaiser's question real quick,
okay.
I would, in your situation, yes, definitely fictional names. You can add real experiences. Like matter of fact, in the book I'm writing now, it's fictional. Obviously, there's, as far as I know, there's no aliens here. Running these sort of opposite of my characters are working on. But like, for example, in one of the stories I allude to, like, remember the big power outage in Canada a while back, like where like the whole one side of Canada went dark.
Yes.
So I allude to that. This caused by the characters in my book, right? So you can mix real things and fiction all the time, and nobody will. The only time you fall into a problem with fiction is if you describe some, like, say you have an enemy or your neighbor or somebody you dislike, and you describe them, even if you use a fictional name, but if you describe them well enough where other people could recognize, oh, you're talking about your neighbor Bob, and then he theoretically could sue you and win, because even though you changed his name, if it's a recognizable character or recognizable person, that's where you fall into some legal issues. So if you're a writer, Kaiser, if I don't know where you live, but if there's any writing conferences near you, they're always good to attend, because you will learn all this. There's always a class on the legalities of writing and how not to get sued and so forth. Highly recommend.
Another question before you go, because I also find this interesting. Most authors they tend to be, although it's not an absolute by any means, most authors tend to stay in their genre, and I find it interesting that you're changing a genre already, which I find really engrossing. So what are some of your favorite genres to read yourself?
So basically the two that is mystery and science fiction. Those have always been my two big fictional genres. I swear to God, I don't think I've ever read a romance novel in my life. It's always been mystery. I thrillers, of course, like Tom Clancy. So thrillers and mystery and science fiction. Those three, I guess, have been all my go-to. Like I've read all the Jack Higgins and the Len Dayton. I used to love all the spy stuff.
Right, yeah.
John Le Carre, I forget to pronounce his name, Le Carre. All those, and then all the Clancy, then all the horror. Stephen King, he was always a good go-to back in the day when he was a good writer. But yeah, but that's why I'm drawn to science fiction. I can't tell you, because my dad was a big science fiction writer. So it's funny. I kind of went from
really.
Oh no, I'm sorry, reader.
Oh, okay,
big science fiction reader.
Gotcha.
Yeah, no, it was so funny because it was one point I remember this really distinctly. I was like, I'd run out of things to read at home, and I was like still in elementary school, I think. And I was like, I had nothing else to read, so my dad had this big shelf of all the paperbacks and stuff. So I just went out there and I grabbed like the most colorful one, which was like a Ray Bradbury. Fortunately, so it's like, because there's a lot of weird, science fiction out there. And so I was Ray Bradbury, I think, Sing the Body Electric, I think, if I recall correctly. And I was like engrossed, it was great. I was like, oh my God, this is the stuff, this is the real stuff. Because up to then I'd been reading, Hardy Boys and, other smaller books from school and so forth. So that was sort of like my first big boy book was science fiction.
Okay, George Alicio, and I told you this. And I predicted two things, like I predict to anybody that comes on the show, especially if they're an author. I predicted two things for you. Number one, that this hour would go, boom, done. And number two, that you would enjoy your time here. So, number one, did this seem like about 2 minutes?
It did. You are correct.
Okay, and then number two, did you at least kind of enjoy yourself here for a little bit?
Oh, definitely. I would love to come back on the show anytime.
Okay, you just beat me out of my next question, which would be, would you consider coming back? And the reason I ask you that is in terms of doing a radio show and show prep, always have more prep than can be possibly conjured by anybody. So it should be no surprise, George Alicio, that I had 8 pages of questions for you, and I got to about 2 pages. Just about.
Oh, wow.
So I got a lot of questions. I would, in fact, love to have you back. On your Twitter account, I know that you're kind of conservative. So in the future, when I have you back, I'd love to get into a little bit more about what you did with San Diego PD. I'd like to get a little bit more into what you think about law enforcement in general today, because that is a massive issue. And then because I see that you lean to being a conservative, I'd like to tickle your brain with perhaps some politics and whatnot. So that'd be kind of my goal on the next time, is to go into a whole bunch of other things that, man, I didn't even get a fraction. I didn't get to a fraction of the stuff that I wanted to talk to you about tonight. But hey, that's just how it goes. That's how it is. So George Alicio, thank you ever so kindly for being here tonight. I greatly appreciate the time that you took to be here. Folks, read his book, Altering Course. You can find it on Amazon in Kindle form right now. It's $2.99. It is a bargain. So thank you, George Alicio, very kindly for being here tonight in the saloon and for the time that you took. God bless you, sir. I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much, BZ. I appreciate you having me on the show. And like I said, love to come back and we'll talk some more.
That would be fabulous. Folks, that was George Alicio, author of Altering Course. Go pick it up. It's in Kindle. I've got a copy on here. If I could legally send all of you a copy of it, I would. But that wouldn't be good, because then he'd lose out on $2.99. So damn it, folks. Go to Kindle right now. $2.99. You can't beat that price. We'll be right back with a whole bunch, and I mean a whole bunch, capital W, capital B, whole bunch of happy stories right after this.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
For 50 years, I've seen the American people blinded by corrupt politicians, a lapdog media, and deceptive Islam. The one thing the elites fear is one man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me through Spreaker, iTunes, and SoundCloud, through SHR Media and the Western Free Radio Network, for half a century of experienced perspective on political and social issues, weekly on The Unpleasant Blind Guy. And catch me on Jeff Mitchell's EDL Radio on blogtalkradio.com. There's
no surrender, ever.
Because truth is not always pleasant.
It's your business diva here, Melanie Collette. I am inviting you to a front row seat as I discuss some of the most intriguing details of wealth and finance with today's movers and shakers in the world of business. Listen in and discover financial truths on a global, domestic, and household scale. Uncover topics that will impact your wallet today and in the future. Money Talk with Melanie airs Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. East, 2 p.m. West, right here on SHR Media and High Plains Pundit Talk Radio. You can't afford to miss it.
From a public locker inside a dilapidated Long Island rail station comes a show designed to piss off liberals using truth, facts, and ridicule. The Lid Radio Show, featuring the conservative voice from the People's Republic of New York, the Lid himself, Jeff Dunitz. Tune in every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com. At Lid Radio, we fight for the truth, justice, and a good kosher T-bone. If you don't listen, Hillary Clinton might sneak into your bedroom in her housecoat late at night and blame you for her election loss. It's the Lid Radio Show with Jeff Dunitz.
Hey girls, Carry Girl Gear is here. More and more women every day are concealed carrying, participating in competitive shooting, and getting firearms training. It's not a boys' club anymore, and we don't have to shop in their stores anymore either. Finally, a cool and unique clothing line just for women. Dope tees and hats for the patriotic concealed carry and 2A girl. So what are you waiting for? Go check out carrygirlgear.com today.
Broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, a mere 2 miles from the state capital, the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show can be heard every Tuesday and Thursday night at 8 p.m. Pacific and 11 p.m. Eastern, only on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com to listen. You can also watch on the SHR Media Facebook page and the SHR Media YouTube channel. No goldfish were abused in the making of this ad.
Show on the SHR Media Network, Sackheads Against Tyranny. On shrmedia.com. Go there quick like a bunny, 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific, every Wednesday. Live and direct on the SHR Media Network. shrmedia.com. Be there.
Hey, this is Michael Wright.
And I'm Shannon Wright.
Join us for The Right Way with Shannon and Mike, Monday through Thursday from 7 to 9 a.m. right here on SHR Media.
Why are they joining us?
For fun things like sports, politics.
Oh, maybe some news and entertainment?
And all kinds of other things.
Money and recipes and events, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, so join us Monday through Thursday, 7 to 9 a.m. here on shrmedia.com.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. Wow. Everything goes quick like a bunny around here. Thanks for listening tonight to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show, live and direct from the SHR Media Studios. The first hour was a great guest, George Eliseo. He's a retired San Diego PD officer. Started in 1989, retired in the year 2000. I wanted to get into a bunch of stuff with him about his retirement, what he did, what he thought about law enforcement in general, the state of law enforcement today. I had a ton of questions. What I have instead tonight are, and I also, I'll Bigfoot myself just a little bit. A year ago, I tried to get Joe Wamba on the show, and I discovered his email address, and we began corresponding, and there were some things that were going on in my life at the time where, bottom line, and I understand his concern, I didn't get back to him as quickly as he would have liked, so he said, that's it, I'm done, we're canceling. I don't think it was that big a delay, but that's his prerogative. It's been a year, and you know me, I can be a dick, but I'm a nice dick. I still have his email address. I've waited a year. I'm going to ask him again and see if he can come on the show. He's 82 years old. One of the things that I wanted to ask George Eliseo tonight was, in my opinion, Joe Wamba set the tone for cop authors. He put out probably, I guess 15 books at least. I think his last book was 2011, 2013, around in there. And it also has to do with North Hollywood cops and LAPD, and also Harbor Patrol cops and San Diego cops, which I find very interesting. So I wanted to ask George about his estimation of Joe, what Joe did for him. I'm pushing 70, so I read every damn Joe Wamba book, and I got them fresh. I got first editions every time, every year that a new one came out. Joe was a groundbreaker, an absolute groundbreaker, and set the tone for cop novels since the 1970s. I think his first book, The Choir Boys. No, it wasn't The Choir Boys. The Blue Knight. The Blue Knight was his first book. And you guys might have to look. I think that came out in 74, 75, 74, right around in there. I gobbled that stuff up. and some of the great names that came out of his books, like for a long time in the 70s, people that we didn't care for were called scrotes, as in scrotum, as in that scrote just tried to hit me, etc. That's probably a phrase or a name that ought to come back. I kind of like that. So I'm going to try to see if I can get Joe Wamba. He may be amenable to that. He may not. But just as I said with George, I'm already at no. And sometimes I get to yes. I've got a ton of these stories lined up. I haven't done this for quite some time. So my guess would be, it's overdue. This is overdue.
It's time for happy stories and good times.
These are some of the stories that I should have gotten to, wanted to, and I'm going to get to them tonight. And then Thursday night, oh my God, have I got a ton of things in terms of happy stories. As I indicated, I've got Alan Thomas coming Thursday night. He's going to be talking about Bigfoot, UFOs, the paranormal. I want to focus in a little bit because this thing about Storm Area 51, you may or may not know, that's still going to happen. And the various authorities that are involved, I think it's Nye County, Lewis County, they're trying to figure out how to handle it because at last look, they estimate that they're going to get at least 5,000 to 10,000 to maybe 15,000 people there. And these are incredibly rural counties. They would no more have an idea what to do with 10 or 15,000 people than the man on the moon. So that's going to be on Thursday night. And then in the second hour, I'm going to have an SHR Media special report about law enforcement, as in, what do you really want law enforcement to do? I'm going to examine that from multiple angles. That's coming up this Thursday. I say it every time. I may be proven wrong. Allegedly, according to Sackheads Clint, there will be a chat show tomorrow night. We've been sending story ideas back and forth. Time will tell. But at this point, there'll be a chat show until I send something out on social media indicating that there just isn't going to be. This is a happy story. The judge dismissed the DNC hacking lawsuit against the Trump team, saying that the claims that the people made in the lawsuit are entirely divorced from the facts. A federal judge, in very, very frank terms, dismissed a lawsuit by the Democrat National Committee, the DNC, against key members of the Trump campaign and WikiLeaks over hacked DNC documents, saying they, quote, did not participate in any wrongdoing in obtaining the materials in the first place and therefore bore no legal liability for disseminating the information. The ruling came as Democrats increasingly have sought to tie the Trump team up with a ton of illegal activity in Russia. Please note, it's been Russia, and then it was racist, and now it's recession, because what the people on the left have determined is Trump the original Teflon Don? And apparently, yes. So that doesn't break my heart to see that the Democrats lost a lawsuit. Here's something also intriguing. Another judge in a separate case slapped down the Democrat gambit in the Trump impeachment probe. A D.C. federal judge shot down an attempt by the House Judiciary Committee Democrats, to link their subpoena for former White House counsel Don McGahn to a separate request for a secret grand jury information from Russia. It's all again Russia. And of course, you should also know that Jerry Nadler is continuing this specious it's not a request. It's a demand for fresh Kavanaugh documents. These insane people just won't let this stuff go. Alaskan says in chat, put Jack on hot standby for tomorrow. Well, good point. Jack asked about it last week, as a matter of fact, and I got back to Jack and I said, well, yeah, except for the fact that we had some technical issues which we had to solve on Wednesday, or I seriously would have considered that. Here's another story from National Review. This is a happy story. This is who I think may be up for the next pick if RGB happens to disappear from this world prior to the end of 2020 and January 20th of 2021. Amy Coney Barrett strikes a blow against campus kangaroo courts. Well, BZ, what would that be about? And why is that a happy story? Her opinion, basically, holds universities legally responsible for their woke ideology. I think that's a great thing. People read court opinions describing campus sexual assault proceedings, and what we discover in retrospect, not upfront, of course, is that there is a staggering amount of unfairness and ridiculous bias in essentially what are campus kangaroo courts. And they are driven, I'll be plain, by the need to literally find men guilty, and rationalized by the Me Too #BelieveWomen ideology. And so campus administrators have systematically, in my opinion, discarded basically all fundamental notion of due process in American law. And courts on the right, there's a little bit of a tendency now. This is a little bit of a trend I'm noticing. Courts on the right and the left are starting to say no to this. They're starting now to block biased sexual assault adjudications. They're starting to actually protect fundamental fairness and attempting to restore what I would call sort of a deeper degree of sanity to colleges. But what occurred about a month or two ago, month and a half, I'd say, and this is how long I've been trying to tell everybody about this, is that the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals decided that it was going to protect the 14th Amendment, and an all-woman panel led by Judge Amy Coney Barrett established a precedent that could be used basically against the woke college administrators nationwide. Here are the facts in the case, which are kind of unique. Air quotes, unique. After a female college student accused her ex-boyfriend of groping her in her sleep, this happened at Purdue University. So Purdue conducts an investigation and an adjudication that was so incredibly amateur and so incredibly biased that it's amazing to think that not kids but actual real grown-ups, real adults, could think that this was either fair or adequate or even a responsible thing to do. The plaintiff, was it John Doe, alleged that he was, this is a quote now in the suit, alleges he was not provided with any of the evidence on which decision makers relied in determining his guilt and punishment. His ex-girlfriend, imagine that, didn't even appear before the hearing committee. He had, this is a direct quote again, no opportunity to cross-examine his accuser. The committee found his accuser credible, even though it didn't talk to her in person. The accuser did not even write her own statement or provide any kind of a sworn allegation. And the committee did not allow the plaintiff to present, this is again a quote, could present no evidence, including witnesses. That's a farce. That is a farcical process. But in the world of leftists, Purdue University in its enlightened woke state found the student guilty and suspended him for a year. The suspension meant the automatic loss of John Doe's Navy ROTC scholarship, and he was kicked out of the ROTC program. Imagine that. The lower court dismissed the student's claims. All right, why wouldn't you? So he appeals to the Seventh Circuit, and a unanimous panel resurrected his lawsuit. So Judge Amy Coney Barrett, who I think in Trump's mind, she may be next up for RGB, depending on what happens between now and January 20th of 2021. She was essentially, basically unsparing, shall we say, of her criticism of the university's procedures in probably what I consider to be one of the most, I guess, telling critiques of the process, with its permanent, devastating consequences for the student's career. She wrote that it, quote, fell short of what even a high school must provide to a student facing a days-long suspension. Withholding evidence from the plaintiff by itself was sufficient to render the process unfair. So was the failure to provide any means of meaningfully examining the accuser's credibility. As Amy Coney Barrett wrote, the evidence suggests that the committee, quote, decided that John was guilty based on the accusation rather than the evidence. So I got to tell you, as far as I'm concerned, that's a happy story. Here's another happy story. This occurs in California. Trump and the GOP are suing California over the law requiring presidential candidates to release their tax returns. You knew that that was coming. So they're suing the state of California over that new law, which requires presidential candidates to release their tax returns in order to run in the state's primary. And that was legislation specifically targeted at OMB, Orange Man Bad, Donald John Trump, the guy with the dead orange cat on his head. It was aimed at prying loose his tax returns, but more importantly, making sure that he was not going to be on the ballot in California. Perfect. Here's another one. And I find this one very nice, very glorious. With the nation's attention on Democrat debates and on Joe Biden and a whole bunch of other issues, Russia, racist, recession. Here's what McConnell did. In the meantime, he advanced a dozen lifetime Trump judges. Confronting this generational shift in our courts will be one of the most pressing issues for the next president. In fact, the viability of his or her entire agenda depends on it. And with the nation's attention fixed on the Democrat presidential debate, the Republican-controlled Senate advanced more than a dozen of President Trump's lifetime judicial appointments. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell rushed to confirm 19 Trump judges before the chamber broke for the recess at the end of the week. And they're not coming back, by the way, until September. Wouldn't that be wonderful to have that? So as these people sleep and yell and spew all sorts of terrible things, Mitch McConnell gets shit done. This is also another article that I find interesting from the New York Times. On the border wall, the Supreme Court caves to Trump. Imagine that. And so there's a terrible photo of this in the New York Times last February in declaring a national emergency that he said authorized him to spend money that Congress had refused to give him on his border wall. Accurate. President Trump predicted we will then be sued. But not to worry, he went on, and we will possibly get a bad ruling, and then we will get another bad ruling, and then we'll end up in the Supreme Court, and hopefully we'll get a fair shake and win in the Supreme Court, just like the Muslim travel ban, he said. And guess what? The New York Times writes, guess what? He was right. So the news cycle, as we know, moves at like Mach 10 in the age of Trump. And the court did this in response to the request by the administration, and it's styled as an emergency, and it was a victory for the president. The New York Times is interesting. It calls this a cheap victory, but it really isn't a cheap victory because cheap doesn't mean free. Wait. There's going to be a price to pay, says the New York Times. Wait a minute. If I had a producer, there's going to be a price to pay, says the New York Times, meaning that I guess that wall isn't going to be free. Well, we all imagined that it was going to be free, didn't we? Hardly. This is from USA Today. Texas top elections officer. Imagine this. God, I hope you people are sitting down for this. 95,000 non-citizens found on states' voter rolls in Texas. Imagine that. Now, multiply that times Obama's 58 states, and you may actually have a very important number here. Texas officials are contacting county election authorities statewide to determine whether people who are not U.S. citizens are registering and illegally voting. Texas Secretary of State Whitley, the state's top elections officer, said his office has been working with the Texas Department of Public Safety, seeking to determine whether non-citizens are participating in Texas elections. He was appointed in December by Governor Greg Abbott. Stop. Do you think any governor other than Abbott would have been remotely interested in this topic? And the answer is no. That is why having a Republican governor in at least Texas, for God's sake, before turning this bastard purple, because that's certainly the point, all the things that Governor Abbott has done in Texas, I find them wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. So full speed ahead to Governor Abbott. And I also have a couple of videos for you guys to hear. Here's sort of I guess you could say this is a happy story, because if in the future you want to play audio confirmations of what you already know about the Obama administration in terms of hypocrisy, well, hey, here's one right now.
2018, they're telling you the existential threat to America is a bunch of poor refugees 1,000 miles away. They're even taking our brave troops away from their families for a political stunt.
Because remember, all those illegals, they weren't coming in caravans, thousands by thousands and thousands and thousands, were they? Nah.
At the border. And the men and women of our military deserve better than that.
President Obama is sending 1,200 National Guard troops to boost security along the U.S.-Mexican border. CBS News Chief White House correspondent Chip Reed has the details. Good morning, Chip.
Wait, this is Obama doing the same damn thing, isn't it? Hypocrite.
Well, good morning, Betty. In addition to the troops, the president is also requesting $500 million for border security. But some border state politicians are already saying more help is needed.
Secure our borders with technology, personnel, physical barriers if necessary.
That's why our administration has moved aggressively to secure.
That was Hillary Clinton, October 31st, 2006. Now this is Bill Clinton in Washington, January 24th, 1995.
Secure our borders more by hiring a record number of new border guards, by deporting twice as many criminal aliens as ever before.
We need to try to incentivize Mexico to do more, and we need to create the environment in which we get people out of the shadows and then give them some earned right to legalization.
We are also a nation of laws. It is wrong and ultimately self-defeating for a nation of immigrants to permit the kind of abuse of our immigration laws we have seen in recent years.
If they've committed transgressions of whatever kind, they should be obviously deported.
We will try to do more to speed the deportation of illegal aliens who are arrested for crimes.
Oh, my, oh, my. Well done.
That's why our administration has moved aggressively to secure our borders more by hiring a record number of new border guards, by deporting twice as many criminal aliens as ever before.
Families who enter our country the right way and play by the rules watch others flout the rules. People who enter the United States without our permission.
Ooh, this is little Chucky Schumer weighing in too.
Are illegal aliens, and illegal aliens should not be treated the same as people who entered the U.S. legally.
Isn't that right, Jack?
Because we live in an age where terrorists are challenging our borders, we cannot allow people to pour into the U.S. undetected, undocumented.
There you go. Massive hypocrisy. Thy name is Demorats. I love this is another reason that I love the internet, because a lot of this stuff is immured forever. Don't think, however, that the goal of leftists isn't to remove this from YouTube as much as humanly possible, to remove it from Facebook and Twitter as much as humanly possible. And why is it? Also, since we happen to be talking about the border, why is the media silent on ISIS entering the United States of America from Mexico?
Investigations, Chris Farrell told One American News how past administrations and U.S. mainstream media have willfully denied the fact that ISIS operatives are entering the U.S. through our open southern border.
The Mexican foreign minister about 3 years back, Claudia Ruiz, in a news report said that she was shocked that there was this culpable negligence, that this willful blind eye turned by both the Obama administration and major media in the United States.
Obama administration, that's what BZ calls the LDAM. Let's see, the leftists, the Demorats, and the American media maggots.
Not discussing this well-known fact that ISIS was going to use our southern border to cross into the United States.
The International Center for the Study of Violent Extremism, ICSVE, released alarming videos of ISIS terrorists confessing plans to infiltrate the U.S. through Mexico last week. A quick ISIS keyword search yields no mention of this report in any of the top media outlets.
The Mexican foreign minister can figure it out. And she claims, or she expresses her frustration at why the American government and American media continue to ignore it. I mean, that gives you an idea of the scope and scale of the threat.
Farrell says ISIS movement through Latin America has been extensively documented at every level of law enforcement, both in Mexico and the U.S.
And now we have on video, in person, an ISIS terrorist explaining exactly what we've been describing for the last 7 years.
Under Obama, the ISIS threat through Mexico was largely ignored.
Of
President
course.
Trump cites Islamic terrorism as one more reason to build a wall on our southern border. But mainstream media doubled down, claiming ISIS in Mexico was myth and hysterics.
Do you have any idea what the president's talking about when he says there are unknown middle...
Okay, stop. I got to tell you this. This is former Senator from Arizona, Jeff Flake, responding.
Easterners mixed in with the caravan?
That's long been pretty much a canard. We don't have any evidence, and he also doesn't...
Jeff Flake, Republican, which is why that bastard needed to be removed. Oh, that's a canard, meaning that's a lie.
Have any common sense.
Bullshit.
I think you're absolutely right here. It is hysterical. It is emotional. It has gotten nonsensical.
The biggest
Yeah, that's Kennedy saying, oh, no, well, screw you.
terror threat in this country
Don Lemon
is white men, most of them radicalized up to the right.
ISIS deniers argue that Mexican cartels and ISIS do not mix. Farrell says this is denying fundamental truths.
Right? Never heard about that. I wonder why. I also found this, so I'm going to play this while I still have it on the internet. This is probably what I consider to be... Oh, shoot! I have gone past the bottom of the hour break. Okay, let's continue. This video is probably what I would consider to be one of the clearest... Okay, it's circumstantial, but it's also a pretty clear evidentiary explanation of, in my opinion, how and why Ilhan Omar's first husband connects to her sister and may in fact be her sibling. Now, the information that I'm going to play to you, by the way, Minnesota media had access to this information for many, many, many years. And they have decided, as the rest of the media have, that they're not going to talk about this, that they're not going to give you the proper information, which is, again, why, for the most part, journalism is dead. They are the American media maggots, and they are fake news.
A report from David Steinberg, Ilhan Omar's ex-husband has been located in Kenya, working for none other than Omar's own sister. Many reports, including most recently from the Minneapolis Star Tribune, have raised the question that Omar's ex-husband may be her direct sibling. Let's break this down. In 2017, now Congresswoman Ilhan Omar filed for divorce from her first husband, Ahmed N. Elmi. In that divorce, she swore under oath that she had not been able to contact him, and thus filed for what is known as a default divorce.
Right.
However, Elmi operates social media accounts under his own name that were openly accessible to anyone with a Twitter or a Facebook account.
No.
In these proceedings, she also swore that she did not know anyone who could contact him. However, there appears to be an issue with that. Ilhan Omar's sister is named Sahra Noor. Sahra is located in Nairobi, Kenya, and is the CEO of a consulting firm known as Grit Partners, registered in Kenya and operating across East Africa. Ahmed Elmi, according to his Facebook profile, has also moved to Nairobi, Kenya. The new discovery was that source code embedded in the Grit Partners website indicates that the website was coded by someone with the screen name of none other than Ahmed Elmi.
Oh, no.
Ilhan Omar has, of course, denied that Ahmed Elmi was her sibling when they married and subsequently divorced in the United States. However, now it appears...
Wait a minute, stop. Does that mean that she married her sibling, well, let's be pointed, her brother, in order to come to the United States and then be a thorn in the ass of the American taxpayer so that she could take her Muslim ways and be the beautiful anti-Semitic representative from Minnesota that she is today?
Appears that a man with the same name is designing websites for her own sister, with both located in Nairobi, Kenya. Ilhan Omar was recently found to be in violation of campaign finance laws by the state of Minnesota. The same investigation found that she had submitted federal tax forms to the IRS, claiming she was married to another man, while legally remaining married to Elmi. Should these new accusations bear out, Congresswoman Omar may be facing more investigations from federal officials.
And imagine that. On that note, I discovered today that now there is apparently a push to recall Omar from the people who happen to be the American taxpayers in Minnesota. Here's another happy story. Gun sales surge fueled by first-timers, mostly for concealed pistols. This is from August 8th. Gun sales are surging after the weekend mass shootings, the mass shootings that happened to occur in El Paso and Dayton, Ohio. And they are by first-time buyers seeking pistols they can carry with them for protection. The latest jump validated a big increase in purchases and background checks recorded by the FBI that show the 4 most recent months higher than the same months in 2018. Imagine that people would want to be able to protect themselves. Oh, that's right, under that pesky Second Amendment in the United States Constitution, the elimination of which leftists, Democrats, and the American media maggots wholly, completely support, because now it's very clear, if you're voting for any of these screw tops on the Democrat Party, they're telling you now outright, there's no couching it in various terms or trying to hint to any of this stuff. They just want out-and-out firearms confiscation, period, end of statement. Your Second Amendment can go straight to hell. Well, that also means that your First Amendment can go straight to hell. And that also means that your Bill of Rights can go straight to hell. And when your Bill of Rights goes straight to hell, that's when Democrat socialists step up. We've seen what happens around the world with that. We're watching that occur in Venezuela right now. And when the United States dies, I'm simply hinting to those of you with an actual head on your shoulders that freedom dies around the rest of the world as well. Here's another happy story. And how many times can you think of that you've heard this or seen this in various forms of social media. They're telling you, oh, there isn't a mile built of new border wall. Anything that Trump is saying in terms of construction of a new border wall, that's just crap. Wrong. That's why this is in the happy story section right now. And like I said, I got a million of them. Construction of the border wall, panels of the border wall are underway in where? California. New reinforced panels are being used to strengthen the border wall in the Calexico area of California. U.S. Customs and Border Protection, CBP, in partnership with the Army Corps of Engineers, announced a new panel installation on an 11-mile section of wall within the Border Patrol San Diego sector. So they're building right now. The new panels will replace the existing secondary barrier with 30-foot tall steel bollards, as well as new technology improvements, according to the CBP. So people that are telling you that, oh, that's not a bull. Listen to the show and then go to your favorite search engine, not Google, and ask a rational search engine for answers to that particular question. I find this also interesting. This is from believersportal.com. And finally, we're having people starting to stand up for things. This is why this is part of a happy story. Christian soccer player refuses to wear gay pride jersey and then walks the walk and talks the talk. Withdraws from the national team. Christian soccer player Jalen Hinkle withdrew from the U.S. soccer team after it was announced that the squad would be wearing rainbow-colored gay pride jerseys in the game that was upcoming. This was back on June 19th. Back then, she cited personal reasons for her refusal to play. She declared Colossians 3:23 on her Twitter page, which said, "And whatever ye do, do it heartily as to the Lord and not unto men. If you live for people's acceptance, you'll die from their rejection." Imagine that. She's been called into the national team camp twice over the past 2 years. In 2017, she declined the invite for personal reasons. She later revealed what many suspected at the time. Hinkle, a devout Christian, felt so convicted in my spirit that it wasn't my job to wear the national team's rainbow-numbered jerseys celebrating Pride Month. So you actually have someone with scruples. Imagine that. And just to reaffirm, I can't say that this is a happy story per se, but it is a story of which you need to be aware. And I submit this to you and proffer this for your listening and viewing pleasure in terms of this is the same government that you want running your health care. This is the same government that you want that has the efficacy and kindness and consideration of your local DMV. Because you'll love this headline. Federal agencies admit to paying $1.2 trillion in improper payments since 2004. Because, you know, if they can't keep track of $1.2 trillion in improper payments, what makes you think your government is going to give one flip about you? Since 2004, 20 large federal agencies finally admit paying out an astonishing $1.2 trillion in improper payments. Well, wait. Whose money is that? Mine? Yours. Does this not appear to be just a bit flip to you? In terms of, well, we lost it. We don't know where it went. We made these erroneous payouts, but that's okay. It's not our money, so it doesn't impact us directly. Last year, these improper payments totaled $140 billion. That's, let's see, let's do the math on that one. Pull out the calculator here. That's going to be, $12 billion of your American taxpayer dollars lost, pissed away per month. Well, come on. But what exactly is an improper payment? Now, federal law says the term is payments made by the government to the wrong person in the wrong amount for the wrong reason. Well, that's buttressing, is it not? Happy, making it think that that's the same government that's going to be running your health care and deciding whether you even get any health care at all. So what does that mean? In other words, basically what that means is there is a lack of basic in-house financial control within the largest federal agencies. When people or companies receive money they don't deserve, it erodes our trust in government, our economy, and government's ability to finance everything from defense to health care. Oh, to continuing with our budget and putting walls at the border, improper payments. Oh, wait, I was talking about health care, wasn't I? Imagine that. Improper payments in healthcare are especially troubling. In 2011, when President Barack Obama signed the Affordable Care Act, the ACA, Congress said that it was going to help pay for it by rooting out, yeah, I remember this. They said they were going to be rooting out waste, fraud, corruption, and taxpayer abuse from the Medicare and the Medicaid programs. Guess what? Bullshit. It never happened. In fact, after they said that, improper payments within those programs soared from $64 billion with a B in 2012, 7 years ago, to $85 billion today. And these are the people that you want in charge of your health care. And since I happen to be talking about things, revelatory things that you need to know about, here's something you may or may not have heard of. This is from SarahACarter.com. There are a handful of decent journalists left in America. Sarah A. Carter is one of them. And I definitely, if you want to find out what's happening, go to SarahACarter.com. Great stories, revelations that you mostly won't read about anyplace else. Here's a story of hers. Google Insider turns over 950 pages of documents and a laptop to the DOJ. A former Google insider claiming the company created algorithms to hide its political bias. Well, haven't they told us for years and years and years there is no political bias? So whatever the hell Google executives said to Congress was a lie. They lied in front of Congress, they lied to me, and they lied to you. They were targeting particular words, phrases, and contexts to promote, alter, reference, or manipulate perceptions of the internet content. Some Google insider delivered about 950 pages of documents to the Department of Justice's Antitrust Division. Imagine that. The former Google insider, who has already spoken to the nonprofit organization Project Veritas, met with Sarah Carter on a bunch of occasions. He was interviewed in silhouette. His identity was concealed. They say exposes bias within the social media platform. Come on. 5-year-olds on 14th Avenue know that there's bias in every social media program on the planet, with a few exceptions. But the ones that run the world, oh, massively biased. That insider, this is interesting, mailed a laptop to the DOJ containing the same information that was delivered. That insider is choosing to remain anonymous, and he was later revealed. But would you imagine? Oh, what we're finding out. This, however, this is a happy story. This comes from, of all places, Canada. We don't really talk about our Canadian friends very much. What we do know is that our Canadian friends are mostly leftist due to Trudeau. Thank you, very kindly. But I found this story, and I had to bring it to your attention because I found it very, very interesting. This is from thenationalpost.com. Because you seldom see stuff like this from Canada, so it's noteworthy. Canadian police chiefs won't back handgun ban. They say it wouldn't stop the flow of guns into the country. The firearms laws in Canada are actually very good right now. They're very strict, said Vancouver Police Chief Adam Palmer. But he had other things to say as well. This is in Calgary. The Canadian Association of Chiefs of Police won't be supporting a call for a ban on handguns, despite concerns about gun violence in a number of major cities, including Toronto. Vancouver Police Chief Adam Palmer, who heads the organization, says Canada already has strong firearms regulations. No other laws are required. Again, to me, that's a stunner. That's a shocker. However, this is not a shocker. And this I tried to get, this came out last week, but I just never got to this stuff. These are things that we naturally intuit. This is a story by Greg Jarrett, who said that Comey's FBI was running a secret counterintelligence operation against Trump. Well, we already knew this, but apparently now new documents show that this is true. And they confirmed that James Comey's FBI was running a secret and corrupt counterintelligence operation against the Trump campaign back in the summer of 2016 and repeatedly deceiving the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court, the FISA court, thereafter in order to wiretap a Trump campaign associate. I've said this for a long time. But this is interesting. It takes lawsuits to find this stuff out. That disclosure was a result of a federal lawsuit and a year of litigation. Despite efforts by FBI Director Christopher Wray, stop. If you think that Christopher Wray has your mind in mind, you would be wrong. Not as bad as Comey, but massively agendized. The FBI, you'd be proud to know, as a former agent myself, you'd be proud to know that, well, apparently the FBI continues to be politicized and is biased. Woohoo! Great. After a year of litigation, despite efforts by Christopher Wray to obstruct, a federal court issued an order that forced the FBI and the DOJ to produce records known as 302s. 302s are like the narrative in a police report. The 302 is just a form number on that. They're basically summaries of interviews that FBI agents conducted with Bruce Orr, a top DOJ official. The 302s show that the FBI and the DOJ were warned repeatedly by Orr that ex-British spy Christopher Steele was virulently biased against the target of their investigation, Trump. Imagine that. The bias tainted the credibility of the dossier Steele composed, upon which officials in the Obama administration relied when they officially launched their counterintelligence investigation on July 31st of 2016. The dossier was also the basis for surveillance warrants against former Trump campaign advisor Carter Page. Did he go to jail? No. The FBI and DOJ ignored the warnings of bias and actively concealed it from the FISA court. They never advised the judges that the information contained in the dossier was unverified. They hid from the judges that it was all funded by the Clinton campaign and the DNC, the Democrat National Committee. Our country had to be sued for this information to be found and made transparent to you and me, the American taxpayer. The court was never told that Orr's wife helped cultivate some of the research used against Trump. Having fired Steele for leaking to the media and lying about it, the FBI and DOJ represented to the judge that Steele was reliable when they knew he wasn't. They continued to rely on him months after his termination because, you see, you have to go back every 90 days to reaffirm FISA warrants. Imagine that. These are things that we already knew. Here's another interesting story. And you know what? I bet this may even involve you. There's an FBI document that came out early this month, that warns that conspiracy theories are a new domestic terrorism threat. I hope you got that right. Conspiracy theories are a new threat. Well, BZ, how does that play out? The FBI, for the first time, has identified fringe conspiracy theories. Well, who gets to determine fringe? I do. You do. They do. Fringe conspiracy theories as a domestic terrorist threat, according to a previously unpublicized document obtained by Yahoo. The FBI intelligence bulletin from the Phoenix field office, dated on May 30th this year, describes, quote, conspiracy theory-driven domestic extremists. If you're willing to consider theories, you're an extremist now. It's a growing threat, and notes that it is the first such report to ever do so. It lists a number of arrests, including some that haven't yet been publicized, related to violent incidents motivated by fringe beliefs. Fringe beliefs. And also, were you aware of this? This is probably going to be the last story for the night. This is from the Washington Free Beacon. Were you aware? Come on, listen. You know this has to be occurring. Liberal activists are preparing a secret list of judges for whomever the next Democrat president is going to be. I personally think it's going to be the guy with the dead orange cat on his head. Activists are beginning to identify progressive judges. They only want progressive judges to fill the courts should a Democrat win in 2020. That's an initiative called Building the Bench. They're preparing a list of replacements to fill potential judicial vacancies in seats currently held by judges appointed by Democrat presidents. And that's from the New York Times. It's essential to be ready on day one of a new administration with names to fill every vacancy, said Nan Aaron, the president of the Alliance for Justice. Whose justice? Democrat justice. Only Democrat justice. Leftist justice and American media mega justice. This is to start identifying people so the new president won't waste a minute in addressing this new need. Okay, I lied. There's one final article. I wanted to get back to this back in June even. And you have to ask yourself, I used to ask myself, hey, whatever happened to the guy that used to occupy the White House, number 44? Whatever happened to him? Because I know he was building a brick house in Washington, and then he put up a big wall around this house because, walls don't work. And then the creepiest thing imaginable is he had Valerie Jarrett into this house with Obama's kids and Obama's wife, Michelle Mabel. Whatever happened to Obama? He's not a big fan of Joe Biden, apparently. But this is interesting, from the beltwayreport.com, it said, we tracked Obama's movements for over a month, and based on his meetings, it's time to question whether he's running a shadow government. The story says, we started tracking former President Barack Obama's movements over 4 months ago, and frankly, we're worried at what we found. Most Americans have not had the time nor the inclination to make a deep dive into how many federal agencies and employees were involved in the attempted coup of Donald Trump. Thank you. At least this writer indicates what I've believed for quite some time. It was a soft coup against you and me and Donald Trump. Even fewer have considered the ramifications of what a widespread interagency operation may mean to their own constitutional protections. They should care because our republic has been gravely imperiled by these deep state actors. If they can get away with this level of corruption with the intent to incriminate a president, what chance does an ordinary citizen like you and me have when targeted? That's been my point all along. If the government can screw over people, big people, well, they can step on us with great impunity and no one will care. So basically the deal is, here's some points. German Chancellor Angela Merkel has received former U.S. President Barack Obama at her office in Berlin for a meeting characterized by German officials as a routine private encounter with a former international peer. So why is she meeting with Angela Merkel? Obama jetted to Paris for secret talks with Emmanuel Macron. Why were they secret? A source familiar with Macron had said that he'd sought the call. He's hoping to preserve France's pro-European Union bent. Wait a minute. Huh. So what is happening? What is happening to our country behind our eyes? Well, if you want to know, keep listening here. Keep reading my blog at bloviatingzeppelin.net. Keep interacting with me at BZEP on Twitter, at BZEP. Keep listening to The Saloon every Tuesday and Thursday night, starting at 8 o'clock Pacific and 11 p.m. Eastern. With luck, there will be a chat show tomorrow. I'm going to have a great guest, Alan Thomas, on Thursday night. And I'm going to have a great SHR Media Network special report in the second hour on Thursday night. What is it that you really want out of law enforcement? Because it's kind of like this. Remember the song from the Talking Heads? Watch out, you might get what you're after.
Monsieur has unlocked!
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, thanks for listening to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show right here on the SHR Media Network. Like I said, if you want to contact me, you can find me at Twitter, at BZEP on Twitter, and my blog at bloviatingzeppelin.net. Promotional consideration is by the Lockheed Martin Skunk Works, the Boeing Company. If it ain't Boeing, I ain't going. And of course, Pratt & Whitney engines thrust. You can trust. Tiaras are by My Little Pony. Thanks to my personal KC-135 Kettle One refueling team, with whom I shall be consorting in less than an hour. Thanks to George Eliseo for being here in the first hour, former San Diego PD officer, retired, and the author of Altering Course. Thanks to everybody here for being in chat. We had a ton of people in chat tonight. Thank you. Thanks to everybody who was listening live. Thanks to everybody who's listening in podcast. God bless, folks. Take care. Be safe. Chat show? Dunno. What about Thursday? I'll be here.
Everybody quiet down now and get some sleep.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, Mama. Good night, Ben.
Good night, everyone. Good night, Mama. Good night, Daddy.
Good night, children.
Good night, Daddy. Good night, Elizabeth.
Good night, John Boy. Good night, Jim Bob. Good night, Jim Bob.
Good night, Jim Bob. What's going on? I was asleep. What's everybody doing? Good night. Good night, Jim Bob.
Good night, and good luck.